welcome to the stream today. Thanks for coming on the podcast, my dude, and having the chat today. I appreciate that.
Am I the guest? Do you guys do this like regularly now?
Yeah, you're basically
Yeah,
the guest for the day.
Okay.
yeah.
What do you guys usually talk about? I thought it'd be like ARPG Central, but
Basically.
I mean,
Basically.
Yeah.
you got Tavern in the name and I'm playing Hearthstone, so people are confused.
Oh, it's
I
Tavern
mean,
Talk.
you remember the sit down podcast I had before?
Y- Yeah,
Yeah.
it was gonna be like coffee time or something, but like Noogie had something like that, and then it wasn't coffee time anymore.
Exactly. So I made sure to take another name because I reached out to him and asked if he wanted to reboot it, and he wasn't sure. So I said, you know what, I'll just name it something else to not interfere. And then DM came around, and I was like, you know what, let's just make this a regular thing. We'll have us to just call up a bud and have a good time. So it's exactly like we did with that show, but it's now called Tavern Talk, and we're two people. So we're like
Okay.
a group of people rather than two. That's it.
Basically. And all of the questions, talking points, whatever you want to call them, I have is just ARPG. Last Epoch, Path of Exile, D4. That was about it. The icebreaker I have here is, so how far in the Palworld are you guys? Because I know GHAZZY plays it. I didn't know if you played it. And from there, it's
I
all
haven't
ARPG.
touched it yet. Haven't touched it yet.
That's been a fun one.
No.
I've seen a few people play it, so I'm not. I kind of know what's going on. It's like Pokemon basically, except it's AI, so it's not Pokemon until the courts decide otherwise.
Yes. Basically,
Got
yeah.
it.
Oh, and add in a Desert Eagle or two, and some slave labor, and then you've got power.
I'm really not a guns guy. Anytime there's
Yeah, I
guns
don't
in a game, it kind of drops it a notch for me. Guns are like not. They don't fill the fantasy. It's like I got swords and armor and hammers and mallets and shields and dude's got a pistol. I'm like, bro, let's reel it back a little bit.
It is quite an
Typical Canadian.
upgrade when you go from a bow and arrow to an AR
Mm.
all of a sudden. It's a little shocking. They missed, a few years in there of technology progress, I feel like, with the game.
What was
think
the reason they had? They said that they needed guns to sell it to the West world or something.
So Americans wouldn't buy it if it didn't have guns in it, I think was what they said in the interview.
I feel like games go too modern on guns, and it feels like they kind of went in that too. Like I want like the old musket blunderbuss, like aim optional, But if it hits, it's good.
Shotgun style rifle. They have one of those. They have a musket in Power, but it just takes like a really long time to load in. It's one shot wonder.
Yes,
Yeah.
right. Well, if it's gonna do a lot of damage, it makes sense. It takes a long time to load.
That was sort of a period of time that doesn't really get utilized in games that much, unless RTS. I guess there's some strategy games that use like Civil War period tech, but other than that, that one kind of gets skipped past to modern, future, or straight medieval.
Yeah. I kind of like the whole medieval approach to things. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I guess it's because it makes sense to be able to go into a melee range in a combat situation in a medieval scenario. Whereas if you have rifles, there's suddenly no reason why you would want to be close to your targets ever. Does that make sense?
I don't think it's so much that. I think guns compete with magic, and magic is just way cooler.
True.
That's a good point.
True. And there's also a power creep problem with modern stuff. It's like, okay, so modern you have ARs, but you also have like tanks. How are you supposed to regulate the difference in power between these? Where one player can have a tank and then you just have like a rifle, from the same age. I guess you could kind of do the same thing with magic and all that, but it feels like it would be harder to make feel balanced.
Wait, what would be magic in like the 16th century versus magic in today's date? Like
Religions and stuff.
what is modern magic versus medieval magic?
Feels like kind of the same to me. I feel like magic's sort of the magic across the board. Magic's kind of sitting in it's not really in like the diagram of the two circles, the Venn diagram. It's sort of in its own little bubble of magic's just kind of OP regardless.
Is magic like Arthurian sourced or something, or is it from somewhere else?
I don't know where it originally strives from. Who's the first person to come up with the concept of magic? Is there actually...
I don't know.
Does it come from Merlin? It's not like that's like the OG, is it? Now I'm curious.
How far back does that come? I mean, it has to be like heathen stuffs, right?
Oh yeah, like
Probably.
Flaming Toads type of stuff.
Yeah. Or maybe
Magical.
probably even further back than that. I mean,
Mm.
Well, this one says the Western concept of magic is rooted from the ancient Judeo-Christian and Greco-Roman heritage. So they're saying the 1500s is what Google's answer to this is, but that's from Britannica.
that doesn't make sense. It has to be like, yeah, prehistoric.
Maybe they're thinking walking on water is pretty magical. Couldn't tell you. So Last Epoch, the change of subject here to get off the magic one. Are you going to play Last Epoch, Kripp?
Yeah, I'll try it, but it's like the first game in a long time that I'm gonna do zero research.
cool.
Apparently, the gems themselves have the skill tree on them,
Yeah.
so that sounds perfect for run it as you go. Because then I'm gonna get like a gem that's cool, and then it's all in front of me, right? It's right there. So then I just pick the ones I like.
Yeah.
It's super easy to understand. I just started playing yesterday, so it's kind of the same thing. Like, I'm not really familiar with it at all. I just kind of started messing around with it. And the skill tree is probably the easiest to understand out of almost any ARPG I've played. It's just really basic. You can pick which way you want to go. Doesn't take a lot of knowledge. So I think a lot of people are going to like it because it's, you know, I like Path of Exile for the complexity, but you're not really required to like have a headache just by sitting there trying to figure it out.
I don't get headaches from Path of Exile. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, you're one of the very few OGs still around these days. When it comes to Path of Exile.
And I guess I mean I play more in moderation than most of the people that cover it, so maybe
Yeah.
that helps. Like
Probably.
usually 4 or 6 weeks in a new league, I'm just not super interested. It's not like I don't like the game anymore. It's just usually something else picks up my interest. So then I don't really play PoE, and then they have their big announcement, like 2 months after that, and I'm fresh and I'm ready to go again. Let's go, right? So maybe that's part of it. I don't know.
You normally play Ruthless, right?
I played both a Ruthless and non-Ruthless this league, and playing non-Ruthless was a mistake. Like it was
Really?
really fun for like 2 days, and then it just got like really tedious to just loot everything. Like it's just really tedious. And I got to the point where my next upgrade was so many like hoops away that I'm like, no. My next upgrade was like replacing an already really good item. And there was like a path to get there, but I just at that point I didn't care. Like my weakest piece on my softcore character, it's still solo self-found. I highly recommend solo self-found if you're, you got a little bit of experience under you.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I had like a fairly weak +2 helm, +2 minion helm. So my next upgrade was getting a better one. That one took me 20,000 orbs of alterations to kind of get the base going. So at the time, I had 30,000 orbs of alterations. So the upgrade was sitting right in front of me. It's right there, right? You just got to get it.
Just
And then
get
I'm
lucky.
like, I don't really want to get it. And then I was a bit low on divines, so then I had to like juice like another, 30 maps to get some, and then bam, I'd get like 100 more health in my character. Yes. So
Yeah.
at that point, it's just no. It's too much effort for too little gain. And yeah, I definitely hit that marker in PoE on normal PoE this league.
I kind of
And then I basically quit and played Ruthless, and I got to 91, which again, as a comparison, is like over level 100 in terms of like time requirement. It's about like I think I used to say 90. It really depends on how much you die. It's probably between 90 and 91, the level 100 equivalent for non-Ruthless. So yeah, I played quite a lot, and I had a lot more fun there. It's just a lot more fun that your next upgrade comes from a monster that you kill. So you want better gear? Go kill stuff. You want specific gear? Well, go kill that specific stuff. And it's really interesting. Like in Ruthless, one of the best things you can do for gear is to do like Syndicate, because you have like the
Okay.
crafting thing.
Yeah,
Like
they'll
it's like full on, except you get like 5 seconds. So the strategy is completely different. You get like one good stat, and then that's it. 89 life on boots, Regal, Exalt, Exalt. And you just hope that one good stat and just 5 other affixes. Like this concept in non-Ruthless is like, it's like, wait, your gear doesn't have 6 stats on it? It's like, yeah, your gear usually doesn't have six stats on it in Ruthless.
Yeah.
So yeah, it just feels a lot better to play. So
I
I'm
think
glad
you're
I
gonna
tried
really
it, but
like Last Epoch when you get there, because it's like it's like you said, DM. It doesn't require so much knowledge and experience and thinking for the to play the game in a very effective way, but it's already considerably more interesting and advanced or complex, if you will, compared to D4. So it's like literally they're in between these two games, while still having some more advanced things like sealing affixes for crafting, and you can go into the little bit more advanced parts of it that nibbles on the complexity that is Path of Exile, but not as much. So the US, without any information, going in blind, will provide you with that scratching that type of itch in that kind of genre of games. So I think you're going to have a lot of fun with that. Another thing that I like with Last Epoch when it comes to what we're talking about with Ruthless and loot and whatnot is that Path of Exile has, to some degree, target farmable item-ish, where you kill that specific stuff, whereas some items are completely random. Like, good luck! If you're lucky, you're lucky. Whereas in Last Epoch, there's a way for you to farm certain specific areas that will have a slightly higher probability of dropping literally anything. So if you're looking for a specific helmet, you can farm in an area that will give you a node or a map that will give you the reward of either a unique or a set helmet, which gives you a higher probability of dropping the one you're actually looking for. So that's something that made me feel like this is the first time I'm actually going to go in with like a solo self approach into Last Epoch. And I've always been a trade league player for the most part in both Diablo and PoE, unlike you being going into solo self and Ruthless, for example.
I didn't realize that Ruthless and Path of Exile like neutered some of the mechanics that way in time based when the Syndicate, because I've done that crafting thing one time.
Like everything, there's very few mechanics that are full on, and if they are full on, they neuter the access or like frequency to it. Like the Alva Temple is full on, which is pretty awesome because you get a lot of loot from the temple. But the Alva missions are far less frequent, and the temple itself is based on the average of 3 temples, not the average of your last like 10 temples plus 10 levels. So to actually get like relevant like maps or eye level stuff, you have to do it on your highest level maps, which then you face the difficulty barrier, because in Ruthless your characters generally suck. So can you actually do a T16 Alva mission and kill the right guy and get to the door with the item?
That's gotta make the campaign way more fun then, right? Because you're it's a little bit more of a struggle.
Insane.
Yeah.
In Ruthless, if you die to a boss, it heals 40%, and in some cases it refreshes its phases.
Oh, so they have like because I only went to Act 9 in Ruthless. I did the hardcore solo self found. I only made it to Act 9 and then I died and I didn't run it back. So I didn't realize that it actually heals the boss. So there's like all kinds of additional little mechanics in Ruthless that just aren't in the other versions of the game at all.
Right. And that's a pretty big one. To give you some idea, there's going to be some bosses that are just, you're not going to kill them. Like one big one is Innocence. It's actually surprisingly hard to have maximum resist on Innocence, and the amount of like damage he does is like actually insane. So if you play normal, it's like, hey, just craft fire resist, like 2 pieces of gear. No crafting table in Ruthless. You literally have to be mindful that around level 45, you're going to need like 100 fire resist somehow on your character. And then if you die, you have to do at least one more of those phases where he becomes invincible and spawns a crap ton of monsters. And I can tell you, like, I've played some characters that I thought were pretty good characters, and I get to that fight, and it just can't beat it. Like, some of these pretty much trivial campaign bosses are actually insane if you start dying to them. And Innocence is one of them, and another one is I forget what it's called, the fire and ice boss, Act 9, I think it is.
Oh yeah, the Lunaris Solaris.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you need both capped fire and cold resist. And a lot of those attacks that almost one-shot you in the normal game, they definitely one-shot you in Ruthless. Like the fire spear throw. Yeah, like I learned how to never get hit by that. And that's something I never actually had to do before. Because it's like, oh, I just lost 80% of my health. Oh, well. I still got the 20, potion up, kill the boss. Boss dies like 10 times faster. No big deal. So yeah, and Ruthless also has this thing where, like, once you get to the mid-90s, it's basically like transitioning from softcore to hardcore. Because if you're like level 94 and you die once every week, you might just like never level anymore. Because 10% of experience is an insane amount.
It is, yeah.
So what do you recommend if I was going to play Ruthless? What is the hardcore solo self-found Ruthless? Is that the one you would say play that one for the most enjoyability?
I don't like playing hardcore anymore. Okay. Like Ruthless, I think softcore is really good because once you get to higher level, you kind of are playing hardcore. Like you really cannot be dying in the 90s in Ruthless. So, yeah.
The economy's got to be a lot better in Ruthless too than if you're playing trade, I would assume. If the drops are really that neutered?
The thing is, in trade, people kind of target the really OP builds and they sell like carries, and then it's not so ruthless anymore. Like a weekend, you see people with like, you know, like the Chayula armor with a good notable on it. And it's like, bro, like this is not what you signed up for. Like I've never even had one of those anywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, like I know in the first issue of Ruthless, there was like a Hexblast miner that just like insta-killed Feared, and yeah, the gear was like, yes.
What the hell? How did I not see this? I missed this entirely. Like I remember playing it and I got excited getting a support gem.
So Hexblast has like a 4 crit chance or something. It's terrible. But if you had the Sandstorm Vision, because it was the Sanctum, you could get like 100% crit mines Hexblast.
No. That's crazy to get that in Ruthless to that point. Even with carries and selling it. I mean, it takes time for people to get to the point of feared carries, even in a softcore trade league. For some people,
I imagine.
That's still a pretty aspirational endgame goal in a trade league environment. To hear that being done in Ruthless, I actually never heard about that. That's crazy.
All the bosses haven't been downed in Ruthless, though, right? Like, not all the Uber. There's still some bosses that are yet to be killed, or is people fully completed it by this point?
Probably by now people have. The truth is that from a gear standpoint, the Uber bosses aren't like great. Like the Uber bosses are, they usually have a good drop or two, but that's usually like the 1-2% drop. So in Ruthless, it's like you're gonna kill 50 Uber Mavens? Are you? Really? Like I got to level 93 in the first Ruthless Hunter Righteous Fire character, and I was trying to get like the Fire Shield from Exarch. Because that's just an insane item on a Juggernaut. I mean, you guys know that. Anyway, so it took me like 5 kills, but that was a lot. Because in Ruthless, it's actually pretty hard to sustain maps in the high end. Like, you always have to really push the limits of map sustain, and it always hits that difficulty barrier, because again, your character sucks. So, and it takes 50, I believe, maps to unlock an Exarch kill. But 50 maps, 14, 15, or 16, like these maps are actually rare. No. So the amount of times you even fight that boss is significantly lower.
Fair.
So then Ruthless has got to take even more time to grind. How do you manage to do Ruthless every season, or when you do it, if you don't play the season as long as you're saying as some other people? So if you're only playing like 4 weeks or something, is it pretty hard to progress during the time you are playing the game if it really takes that many maps?
Usually if you're like going ham, you know what you're doing, you know how to kind of balance like the difficulty versus like map sustain. Okay, well, I guess you'll have to see that light. I think and you also get a bit lucky, you can do at least one of the pinnacle bosses on like day 2 or 3.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Because the
pretty
first one
effective.
is not 50 maps. The first one is 1 tier 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
you still need a character strong enough to kill it.
Yeah.
And you
There's that.
better hope you kill it that first time, let me tell you. Because if you don't,
You're in for a long session of waiting, and I get
Yes.
that, and that's your stone as well.
I think you only have to do a few maps to get another invitation, but like usually when you do your first 16 to get like your first attempt at one of the Uber bosses, it's not like softcore where it's like, hey, I just got like 10 other T16 maps, whatever, right? Usually when you're doing your first T16, it's because you Harbinger orbed it and then it corrupted from a 15 to a 16. Like that's your first T16 map. You got like nothing else. So yeah, it is interesting.
Does that change?
Crazy.
Oh, go on,
Go ahead.
GHAZZY.
How you take it?
I was just gonna say, does that change the way that you end up building what you can handle? So, like for instance, I don't build immunity to reflect when I'm playing hardcore solo self-found. I just don't do the maps that are reflect. So when you playing Ruthless, do you find yourself like, I'm gonna make myself, reflect immune and all these things so that the viable map options are a higher percentage?
So reflect is actually not like a total wall when your damage is like a lot lower. Like spell suppression and spell block actually counter reflect pretty well. Like I play Absolution a lot and I usually get the spiritual bond, so like the actual cast Absolution is doing like, like a couple 100,000 damage. But with cap spell block and resist, you actually don't one-shot yourself. So you can still do maps if you're like extremely careful and you don't hit like 5 mobs at once type of thing.
No.
But yeah, you kind of want a way to handle any map mechanic because you can't really afford, like there are very, very low currency. You can't really afford to be rolling maps all the time. So if you like Alka map, good luck. If it's like no regen, turn off Righteous Fire, get a mana potion.
Okay, that answers that question.
Like, yeah, hearing you talk about like the overwhelming preference of playing Ruthless over the other game modes in PoE. Epoch is obviously there. I believe, I'm not sure what their plans are, but there's a masochist mode. It's nowhere near Ruthless, but it's making it harder. Now, I have tried, I believe I'm allowed to say this, so let's cross my fingers here. The current state of what I've seen is really hard compared to what we have access to in the live game right now. So it's actually really, really hard. And I'm very excited for that.
So, I guess is my. I don't know anything about the game, and I'm sure a lot of people watching don't know that much about the game either. So what do you think makes it hard? Do you know?
It's just the damage scaling. Like enemies take much longer time to kill, and you don't zoom through and one-shot things. And they made in the current state that I've tried out is just making things significantly harder. So you actually have to think about what the enemies are doing. Like you mentioned with the fire lightning boss, you had to make sure you dodge certain abilities or you would get one shot. That's literally how the game feels that I've played right now, and it's really cool. But to further the question that I was going to get to was, with that in mind, since you haven't touched the last Epoch yet, you have played a lot of D4, which is, from our experiences, literally on the opposite side of the universe. Like it's in a different realm. It's a different dimension. Like, how do you make D4 entertaining for you, coming from a player that enjoys Ruthless as much as you do?
This is a question to me, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the D4 is kind of a game that it's a lot easier to like make a build compared to like PoE. But for whatever reason, people aren't making them. the amount of like meta Andes in D4 is astounding. Like I set out to play a companion druid this season, and no one's even attempted. Like I couldn't even find a build to go off of to like optimize it further. There's like nothing on the ground. No one's even attempted to play this crap. And yeah, it wasn't that good, but actually it was like one of the best leveling builds, and people watching were like, "What the hell?" Like I did what is it, the T4 attunement guy? I did it like level 55, and he died in like 5 seconds. Companions. It's like there's no actual skills being used as a druid. It's like the crappiest leveling class in the game, right? So you learn a lot about these things, and like for me, kind of the discovery of the class and what I can do with them does kind of push things a little bit. Like if all the builds were figured out, I probably would be really bored of D4 right now. But I've been trying to make some kind of companion druid work, and again, I'm really on my own on that one. Before that, I tried to make like a new type of like Sork that doesn't use Lucky Hit at all, and it's just basic attack scaling with like some of the new mechanics. And before that, I tried to make Minion's Necro work, and it's actually a really good build. And again, to give you some idea, there's so many like build websites out there, but especially the ones that are not user-based, their Minion Necro builds are like from pre-season, and they just like put it in like F tier. Just just whatever. It's bad probably. Don't play it. Right? But then this season, I got to World Tier 3 faster than like Rob's group. Right? It's like Minions, Necro, and like no one is playing it.
Yep.
And
yeah, they're solid.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate because I actually think it would be almost a meta build if not for the corpse spawning bug, which kind of blows my mind. Like we've had like hotfix number 8 today in this season, and we haven't fixed the main source of corpse generation for Necros. Like the Reapers don't summon corpses. That's a bug. So I can't use Bone Mages because I don't get corpses on single target. They just kill themselves, and I can't heal them because there's no corpses.
Yep.
So yeah, Minion Necros, like it has a few challenges, but it'd have a lot less if they just fixed. Like to me, that's akin to like Barbarians not gaining Fury. It's like Sorks not getting Barrier. Like Necros don't get corpses. Are you serious?
Yep.
Right?
We don't really use a lot of Essence, normally at least, for the bulk of the play style on a Minion Necro play. Our resources is the corpses. Without them, that's literally like you mentioned, like a mage without, no Sork without mana. That's basically how it feels. And it's just, all right. So I guess it is F tier after all. So they were right, you know.
Well, I mean, I'm doing like Nightmare Dungeon 100 pretty well, and I've done like a few iterations of the builds, and there's a lot of interesting stuff. Like Diablo 4's got a lot of quirky mechanics, but it's also kind of fun to go through them a little bit. Like we had the Golem change this season where all the Golems do like AoE attacks. So like Blood Golem, automatically the best Golem. I mean, that's what everyone thought. That's what I thought. Is the Blood Golem. But then I realized that the Blood Golem, even though it's really good when you press the Golem button, it's otherwise really bad because just CC the whole time. And I also realized that even though it does 50% more damage with its auto attack than the Bone Golem has like a double attack. So the Bone Golem actually attacks like 50% faster. So they actually do like the same auto attack damage. But the Bone Golem button makes him crowd control immune for the whole 6 seconds he has Taunt and Thorns. So it took me like several days to really figure this out. But like actually the Bone Golem's way better still if you're playing full minions. And then that changes things. I don't even use Corpse Tendril on the Summoner, so now I'm getting like insane Lucky Hit procs because most of the Lucky Hit procs come from Thorns, and now I'm not crowd controlling the mobs anymore. Just letting them hit my Golem. So now we got like this, crazy cooldown recovery thing. So I don't know, like all that is kind of a discovery, and it's kind of fit this weird role that I never really expected where like the game is pretty fun for me because there's so many unexplored parts of it.
No. As your take, DM, on minion builds like Druid or Necro, like have you delved into that at all when it comes to D4?
No, as far as like theory crafting builds, when I started playing, the first thing I did was make a druid, and what I wanted to do was make a companion druid. And at the start of the game, I tried it. What I liked originally was the fact that the companion druid wolves themselves seemed extremely tanky, and that the charge from the wolves actually seemed like they did like a nuke. So that I liked that. But then as I got through it, I just liked the pulverized bear better. I like the smash. So I just kind of always been an earth bear. What I really wanted to make work when it comes to the minion necromancer part of that question was Thorn's minion necromancer. I never figured out the build to make it work quite well, but I thought the concept was super cool. Let me send in my dudes, they're attacking my front line, they get proc back. I always wanted thorns to be a thing just because I think thorns are cool. I don't know if they're necessarily going to be, one-shotting Lilith like the Hodabar, but like I did think that the concept of a thorns necromancer minion was something that I tried basically every season, and I never really got it to the point, where I felt like I was able to do everything I wanted to do with the build, but that was what was fun for me, at least.
Makes sense.
You're in luck. It's not bad right now.
Yeah.
I couldn't really figure out the single target is the problem. Basically,
yeah.
the bone golem has this thing where like it takes its armor, and then it gets a percentage of that as thorns, like 60% or something, like during the button use. So what you can do is get a bunch of armor on your character with like Juggernaut and stuff, and then get every single minion armor and golem armor node on the Paragon tree, and the thorns can hit for like 2 million.
Okay.
But the problem is the bosses, some of them attack really slow, and your damage is really bad. And because you invested your entire Paragon tree in minion armor, your other abilities don't really do all that well.
So unless it's the Blood Bishop, you're not exactly nuking these bosses, huh?
Right.
I mean, I kind of like these very defined archetypes. Like I was always a big fan of the early season 0, season 1 in D4 with the Ring of Men down. Like, I loved it. Like killing Uberlilith with that was like Jesus, take the wheel and just pray the RNG would just roll in your favor. It was so messy, but I like the idea of it. And then I was never a fan of the golems till you and I had a pretty we've been having some conversations about minions for quite some time now, but it wasn't till you got me into the whole golem approach that I was like, maybe the golem should be used in this build. It's actually going to be really good, because it felt really bad in the early stages, and then the improvements that came in, I know, when you taste something and you don't like it, and you kind of never want to try it out again. Like sushi stuff for me, first time I ate it, horrific. My dad made it. It was terrible. 5 years later, ate it again. I love sushi these days.
Is your dad like a professional Japanese sushi maker?
He is not, no, but he was a chef at the time.
Okay.
Not much of a sushi guy myself.
Sorry?
Said not much of a sushi guy myself. I dated a girl who was the manager of one of the nicest sushi restaurants here, and that's all we ate was sushi, like quite a bit. And I kind of got burned out of it, But then again, I've been eating cheeseburgers for 20 years straight, so I'm surprised I should be burned out by that by now.
Can't burn out on burgers though. Like burgers and pizza, they're like the type of food that you can eat for the rest of your life, right?
What's actually pretty good.
Kripp, do you have any dish that you have like, this is what I'm going to eat every time I get access to it for the rest of my life, considering your diets?
I like bean chilies a lot.
Yeah?
I like spicy food. I like beans. I like the tomato heavy spiced combo. Like I like Indian food a lot.
Oh yeah.
Oh, my fiance made an Indian dish called dal. You tried it?
Yeah, that's the lentils, yeah.
Yeah. Oh.
Mm-hmm.
I forced her to get me some chicken for it though, but it's good even without it. No, it's really nice.
Like that dish can be pretty similar. You just have like lentils and like tomato sauce type of thing. Lentils are just kind of annoying to prepare because like if you get like the ones they pick, they often have like little like dirt and rocks in them. Like it's really hard to really clean them, and those aren't fun to chew on.
I like the barbecue cauliflower. I was a vegetarian for 3 years, and I ate a lot of that. And I always thought the Beyond and the Impossible were like okay, but I couldn't really get into those as much as it seemed like the other people really could. I thought they were like all right, but the Cauliflower I thought was better.
Definitely good. I'm a big fan of curry as well. Curries in general. That's really nice. I'm a big meat guy though. That's my problem. Like I
I
love
mean, a lot of
meat.
people are.
Yeah.
I'm more of a bread guy. But going back to the conversation about enjoying things for long periods of time, the kind of GHAZZY asked you about D4, I wanted to ask you one about Hearthstone because, low known fact, before I even made my first YouTube video, I actually watched you every single day because you came on at 7 p.m. my time and you were playing Hearthstone. And I was super into Hearthstone at the launch. So I watched you play Hearthstone every day because you had a really consistent schedule. And I know you've been playing Hearthstone like, I want to say 10 years at this point. I don't know if that's accurate, but it seems about, I think, 2013, if I'm correct. And,
Yeah.
What is it about Hearthstone in particular that's managed to keep your attention span? I know they have pretty frequent updates and, there's Arena and Battlegrounds and all the different game modes, but I'm sort of curious what it is that has been managed to keep your attention span for that long.
Well, it hasn't really been one thing. Like the whole general gameplay, like the standard gameplay, that didn't really last very long. I don't really play that like full time for like 6 months. I kind of got a bit bored of it, but when they make some new cards, I kind of gravitated to Arena, and it's a lot more suitable to kind of get an understanding for the new cards that they made through playing like the normal game mode. So basically, I'd go like 85 Arena, 15 normal game mode on like the big launches and stuff, and I really like Arena. Like, I mean, I played Magic the Gathering, mostly Friday Night Magic, for most of my teens and maybe a little bit afterwards. And Hearthstone Arena has really got those vibes. It's like, here's some stuff, make the best of it. And Arena's matchmaking was really good because you'd always play someone with a similar record of yourself. So you'd start skewing, and if you really played a lot, you had a really good idea what they're likely to have. Like if you're at like 0 wins, 2 losses, that mage ain't gonna clear your board. He's at 0 wins and 2 losses because he can't clear boards. So you can like commit really heavy, and like the level of mastery of Arena is really, really high. So I really like that about it. And again, in general, I like playing that type of game. When Battlegrounds came out, I just really, really liked Battlegrounds. Like auto battlers were pretty new, and this is a really good auto battler in my opinion. And I kind of got to the point where I just only really wanted to play Battlegrounds, so I did. That's about it. Battlegrounds, I think, started off. It started off well because it was like an actual different auto battler. Like originally we had the Dota auto chess, and then we had like regular auto chess and Underlords, and then we had TFT. And like those games are pretty similar. Okay.
Yeah.
Like the difference between those games is like 10%. Battlegrounds is way different than all of those games, so it felt so much more fresh to me. And lately, and by lately I mean except for this patch that we're currently playing, which is actually pretty crap, they've had a pretty good update cycle for the game mode. Like they've kept it pretty fresh. They've added some pretty good stuff. The games just don't feel too samey, so that's really big for me.
Do you like the collecting aspect of it? Like trying to get the golden cards and make. Yeah, I'm a collector. I like, I always collected like figurines back in the day. Like Mech Warrior had, like their little figurines, Pokemon cards. I have tons of cards, but I never really played the game aspect as much of them. In fact, Star Wars is coming out with their own sort of card game that I tested at TwitchCon, which actually was really good. I'm going to probably get into the Star Wars one. It's supposed to launch in March, from what my understanding is, but more so just because I like collecting the cards. So I was kind of curious if that's something you liked in Hearthstone as well, like getting golden decks, etc., or is it more just raw gameplay?
I think Battlegrounds has no collecting about it, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, you can collect like hero skins and stuff, but yeah, I'm not really big on cosmetics.
Okay.
Like when I play PoE, the cosmetic round happens like 2 weeks in. Until then, I don't equip anything.
All right.
I
Fair enough.
actually like a lot of the PoE gear skins. Like you get like a Crusader plate that it's like a literal plate of metal with like a belt strapped on it, and then you put it on your character, and it actually looks like that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You know, I'm not so keen on turning that into like some like demonic thing with wings sprouting out whenever I pop a mana potion. Like that's cool, but it doesn't really hit me in the right spot.
You probably like.
But MTXs gives you better RNG. Hello? I mean, everybody knows that. Before you open an MTX box, you got to buy a Weta pet. Everybody knows this. You know, I don't know. Like, I'm the kind of the opposite of that. I feel like when my
most people
character
are.
is bad,
That's why PoE's in business, right?
true. But like my character, when it's bad, it doesn't deserve to be floating on the ground. It doesn't deserve sexy wings. But when it's geared and it's performing, it has now been rewarded with being equipped by MTXs. Like I'll spend half an hour, and be like, you have deserved this, little girl or little boy. I'll play witches mostly. Like I love that archetype. So I come here, we're gonna put some clothes on you. You've been naked for too long, and we start dressing her. Like, look at this wing. Take this. You need pants? Here, we got some pants for you. You know, like just shove everything on it. Get the pets out, the portals. Before that, gotta
I feel
earn
like
it.
the main cosmetic that I do is like I want my character to look kind of consistent when I do apply the MTX, and then I want something that lets me see it a little bit better among my army of minions. Those are like the requirements.
You'll probably like less Epoch's cosmetics, I would think, or not necessarily their MTS cosmetics, but what your character actually looks like, because it's similar to PoE that way, where you put on playmail, looks like playmail. Like the gear doesn't actually look bad. You look like whatever character style you're actually playing. At least I was playing sort of a sword and board paladin, basically. And I was noticing that pretty quickly. It's like, hey, this actually kind of looks like a dude in armor. Like I don't have some weird unicorn hat or something with the gear, and just because it has +2 stats. So I think the cosmetics in Last Epoch look pretty good too.
They do, yeah. The improvements on like the graphics over the last couple of years have been absolutely fantastic there as well. But no, they look really good. I think they've like Path of Exile has also stepped up a really, really big step up in terms of MTXs ever since they introduced like the battle pass, right? The specific unique items. MTXs have just been phenomenal. The boxes they released have just been complete. Like a big step. It's no longer just a visual thing. There's a lot of other effects going on or other impacts to it as well. Like a large variety, like the ant pet, for example, running in a line, following you, or the sandfish pets eating, consuming corpses, growing, do floating corpse, just body armor. And I don't know. I think it's pretty cool with the way they've improved the MTXs. Like I'm a big
do a really
fan
good job
of it.
with MTX, but they have to, right?
Yes, I mean it's what makes the lights stay on in the basement. No, I think it's really cool in general. I'm a big fan of it, like I mentioned before. Like I love playing the witch class mostly, so it's like when I have this character coming up and it's just wearing rags, like putting that MTXs on, it's no longer just a big plate armor and a strap on it. I mean, come on, Kripp, you can do better than that. You put on like a floaty voidborn chest, and suddenly your character is floating. It's cool. I mean, you gotta give your character some love, some respect. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of mixed on the cosmetics. I feel like it depends upon the vibe of the character. I like my character to look like whatever the theme I'm going for is. So unless I'm building like some kind of, oh, this is a fire guy, so I want him the fire MTX. If he's just a sword and board guy, like I don't want him to look like something completely random. I want him to kind of look like a character that makes sense. He's got a sword and shield, etc. That's kind of why I like Last Epoch. But then again, I'm only like a day in the Last Epoch. But from all the gear I was equipping without the cosmetics on, I was like, these all kind of make sense. Like they look good. I don't feel like my character's dumb or mixed matched at all. Like the helmet look good, the shield looks good. Like I was kind of liking them so far. Hopefully the in-game stuff looks that way too.
I kind of like I buy like the character fantasy of like the ascendancy classes in PoE. Like I know that when I play a gladiator, uh like the helmet the gladiator wears is a Sam Knight helmet. So if you wear a Sam Knight helmet, your gladiator duelist looks like a gladiator. So, you know, I like that when it fits. Um
No.
I think out of the cosmetics I've used the skin transfer a fair amount. Maybe not so much recently because there's been a lot of summoners, but yeah, otherwise.
How about the real life art that comes with the supporter packs and like collector's edition? Like the reason I got the Diablo 4 collector's edition was I wanted the real life art to put on the wall. I know you got your LED panels behind you, so you don't put all that stuff behind you. But do you collect art at all for the games that you play? Do you like real life collectibles? Maybe not so much in game cosmetics, but how about the real life ones?
Well, listen, DM, you just keep doing what you're doing, and you fast forward 10 years, and you're gonna have a basement full of WAG, and the collector's editions aren't gonna hit quite the same.
Okay, yeah, no, to be honest, I get it. The first box I got from a company, I was like, this is so cool. I'm going to keep this hat. And then, like, the 30th one, I'm like, where the hell am I going to put this damn thing? All right, fair
I
point.
know what you're saying, Kripp. I had some help moving today. I just moved in. That's why the lights and everything is so scuffed. I do apologize for that. So I got my own streamer cuck shed, and I got some help moving from the apartment. And I found this collector's edition for Diablo. I think it was the Diablo 4 one. The paintings, the books, some candle, and stuff like that. I just looked at it. I was like, I don't even know where I'm gonna place this. My fiance refuses to let me put the paintings up or frame them and put them up in my daughter's room because they look demonic, and that's not good for her apparently. So it's like, okay.
I mean, you know, I don't think she's without reason there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To be fair, my daughter's middle name is Lilith, so I figured it would make sense to have a poster of Lilith in her room. I thought that was fitting. But no, I had to agree with her because she's more reasonable and more sensible than I am. So
Sounds
yeah,
like it.
anyway, so the guy that was helping me move, he was like, "Oh, you got this collector's edition thing in this box. This is so cool." I'm like, "You can have it." And it just felt so good because I had no idea where to put it. So I know what you're saying. But I remember when I got it, I had like this super exciting feel. It's like, yo, this is so cool. Open up. I'm going to put this everywhere. And then it just down the box it went, and it just stayed there for a long time.
I don't want to like discount its meaning. Like when I get something and you can tell it's like cool or it's like it's quality, you always recognize it. That feeling never escapes me. But the I must have it collectability part, it's not as strong as it once was for me.
Mm.
That's fair. I feel like what happens is I get sold on the hype of the marketing. Like, I'll give you an example. So, like, the Starfield watch. I saw this thing. I'm like, I got sold on the Starfield bandwagon. I'm going to love this game. So, I pre-ordered this watch. I'm like, this thing's going to be great. I'll wear this. I love watches. I don't buy them, but I love watches. So, I'm like, I'll wear the watch. I get it, and it's just been sitting in the case. And I wore it one time, and I don't do anything with it. And then I was thinking, well, this is going to be another pile of collector's items that probably have no meaning to me in about 3 weeks, and that's exactly what happened. So I get it.
Can we see it?
Yeah.
You could, but it is at the house that we're moving to. So it's already been moved. Unfortunately, that's all this stuff is empty now, and I just have to. The van comes here on the 12th, and we're moving all the big items. But the watch is
Tell
pretty
them
cool.
about Blizzard Wrath of the Lich King cards. Yeah, so at BlizzCon they had these like Wrath of the Lich King classic cards that they only sold at like BlizzCon and one other convention. And they were like $30 a pack, and you get like all the cards in one pack, but only one of them is like shiny. So I bought 30 packs.
Jesus.
So did you get 15 of the same ones being shiny, or did you get all 30 shiny? You have the
Yeah,
shiny.
I'm missing like 7 of them, and someone did like the odds, and it's like these are not randomly distributed.
How was BlizzCon? You went to this BlizzCon, didn't you, Kripp?
Yeah.
You enjoy it? What was your take on Blizz? I was really wanting to go, but I got extremely sick before going. I thought I probably shouldn't be coughing over people on the meet and greet. That'd be a bad look. So I ended up not being able to go. But
I think what happened is because there was such a gap with COVID, like a lot of events didn't happen for like 2-3 years. I think it was going to happen for 4 years. I think the staff turnover they had, they basically made mistakes they made before and then some.
Ooh.
Like organization wise, it was not very good. Like one of the biggest things that actually, and it's not just me, because I know how hard it is to get a seat when these things happen. The two coolest things that happen at every BlizzCon I've ever been to, number one is the costume contest, and number two is the band. So that was like different this time. So the costume contest was bundled with like a whole bunch of other like art contests or some crap that I just care a lot less about personally. But again, I've been to like 10. I've actually been to 10 BlizzCons, by the way. 10.
Do you go to
like,
all of them then, or have you taken any
no, there's been like
gap
12.
years?
I missed like 2.
Okay.
I got married on one of them, so not for nothing.
True.
All right. But like, I know it appeals to my taste, like the costume contest and the band. But again, for the band, you have to be sitting in that chair for like 6 hours to actually see the band. Like these things are really hyped up. The same for the costume contest, maybe not 6 hours, but a bit. So when they had the costume /whatever, the whole thing was bundled up and it was like super short. It was like 40 minutes for like everything instead of like an hour and a half just for the costume contest. So, and I don't know how it worked like behind the scenes, because usually they get evaluated by like, I think there's like a first round of making it like you can't show up in like a ghost costume and go up on stage type of thing. Even though that kind of happened a lot of the time with Rand Whisperwind is like a really popular one. Yeah. Apparently you guys know what I'm talking about. Okay, good. But yeah, so the costume contest was super short. I felt like kind of cheated out of a costume contest for BlizzCon. Instead of there being multiple stages, so you'd go like costume contest, you'd go watch Artosis cast like StarCraft, and just, even though you haven't played StarCraft in like 15 years, like, yeah, you know what's going on. Artosis is awesome. Tasteless is there, all that. So that didn't happen. They didn't have a StarCraft event. Apparently the Overwatch event, someone was just posting updates on Twitter. Like the Overwatch event wasn't even online at all, just to give you some idea of the organization level. But they only had one stage, and because they had one stage, instead of like something always happening, it was like something happens and then you just wait 45 minutes of literally nothing. They played like the World of Warcraft What's Next trailer. Man, I saw the trailer at BlizzCon like 50 times. I never want to see that trailer anymore. It's a good trailer, but I've seen it enough. And yeah, the good stuff got really shortened. The band, instead of like, let's back up. Who's played at BlizzCon? Like Foo Fighters, Metallica, Linkin Park,
shit.
Ozzy Osbourne.
Oh.
By the way, the band to top all of them, Jack Black and Tenacious D.
Oh, no,
all of them.
Jack Black was there, dude. Did he play the metal?
He's ridiculous. Yeah. They had Weird Al Yankovic. Okay. What's that? Tool? Oh, Muse. Yeah, not Tool. Muse.
Yeah, Muse was there. Okay. Yeah.
Anyway, so this time it was less Seraphim. Okay, last one they did like 3 smaller bands, but they kind of had like an angle to them. Like one of them was Hodor's new techno gig. So like, I don't like techno, but do I want to see Hodor's version of techno? Yeah, kinda. I want to see what it's about, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This time they had less Seraphim, and instead of it being a 2-hour contest, I didn't know this until afterwards because we left after like 2 songs because it's just really bad, in my opinion. Again, whatever. Their concert was half an hour. So
what?
Like, yeah.
Like 3
what
songs.
happened to the rest? Yeah. And And like again, I want to kind of bring some objectivity here because I don't want to be like, oh, K-pop, old man Kripp hates the new stuff, right? I try to look them up. They didn't exist a year ago. Like the band didn't exist a year ago, right? So when you compare them to like Metallica and Ozzy and like, right, it is a big gap. Okay. I don't think I'm unreasonable to suggest that it was different, right? I
That sounds
don't think I'm
crazy.
unreasonable.
Like I'm a metalhead. I listen to most music, but rock and metal is closest to my heart. And I go to festivals when I can. I used to go all the time. I go to rock bands, to their shows and whatnot. You get a 2-hour show, unless you're going to Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden always do 4.5. You go Bruce Springsteen. He would play for 10 hours. They would drag him off the stage if he tried that, but he would. Like, it's crazy how much value of entertainment you get to go to these shows. To hear you say they had a show for 30 minutes, you're just warmed up at that point. Like, what's happening? That's crazy.
We have just a new perspective on the 30-minute concert. Apparently, a 30-minute concert is 60 TikToks long. So it's just a different frame of reference.
I'm getting the vibe that you're into music a little bit, Kripp. That's something I didn't realize at all.
Oh yeah, I just don't play it on stream because I'm still getting burned on music on like using it in like YouTube videos and stuff. Like people ask me all the time for like my old WoW videos, and I just took them down because like when I made these WoW videos, there was like a library of songs that YouTube owned. And you could either download the songs. I think it still has something like this.
Yeah.
Or you could overwrite the audio on your video. It's called like the audio swap library.
Yep.
Yeah. So when I made my WoW videos, I just combed this library for all the good songs. It took forever because it's a lot of maybe not bad, but a lot of like very indie stuff.
Yeah.
Not entirely, but a lot of it. And didn't have like a great search system anyway. So I went and I combed through it all, and I just found some songs that I really liked, and I used those in my WoW videos. And if you fast forward up until like a few years ago, we just have like people starting to claim my videos.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is because what happened is it's been so many years that like YouTube doesn't actually have the rights to that music anymore. And shady, scummy companies deliberately acquired those rights so they could claim like massive amounts of videos on the platform. And while most of the time they're just like claiming like the ad revenue, they still have that power over you to shut your channel down. And for how shady these companies are, we have to take those videos down. Yeah, it's like, negotiating with scumbags type of thing. Mm-hmm. Maybe not today, but years from now. So yeah, I'd never play music on my stream. I think Twitch dodged like a massive bullet with the Amazon buyout because before they were like a small company, and like this small company had like streamers with thousands of viewers blasting Drake 24/7. So that was a lawsuit waiting to happen.
So that's from the business side of it. How about it from the personal side of it? Do you play any instruments, or you go to concerts fairly regularly?
We go to a number of concerts. Yeah, Rani and I like kind of the same music, and even if it's not something we're super into, we're kind of open to seeing a band like once. Like some bands are like really good live, and some not.
True, actually. Saw Modest Mouse, and I like Modest Mouse, but then saw them live, and I was like, this is not one of the better concerts I had been to. So sometimes there's a gap between the music and the performance for sure.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely the case. Like my older siblings, they work as bar managers at Sweden Rock Festival, so I used to go there every year, all the time. I went there a couple of years back to help one of my brothers in the bar actually, because they had like a last minute dropout, and we get to go backstage with them quite a lot. So I met quite a few people. I'm not sure if I told any of you guys actually, like the stream logo I have there, my little butterfly. That's made by one of Marco, the vocalist in Nightwish. His tattoo artist made the stream logo for my stream, whom I met at Sweden Rock Festival 12 years ago or something, 10 years ago. So it's pretty cool. But like seeing bands live is just so, it's just a different vibe, but it just separates everything. Music. Everyone's taking it for granted. Oh, just start up Spotify or YouTube or whatever, and they, just blast on music and that's it. But just seeing it live is just such a big difference. But it's very sad when you encounter situations where the show is bad. Like you talked about a 30-minute show. It's not a show. It's 60 TikToks, like you said. I mean,
Yeah. But yeah, I always just felt like the whenever like a big music label would go after Twitch, they'd go after everyone. Really surprised that actually never really happened or hasn't happened yet, I guess, Um,
Well, you make a smart point about the companies
Yeah.
acquiring outdated IPs that then they go after the copyright. I didn't think about that at all, to be quite honest with you. A lot of the stuff I use is just video game music because I'm trying to avoid the same problem. So my logic is, well, if it's in the OST, like Skyrim OST or something, like if you can play the game on live stream, I'm probably not going to get copyrighted for using the music from the game. So I just try to do that stuff. But a lot of stuff I listen to is Nintendo.
Not always the case, by the way.
Unfortunately, you're correct.
One of the big examples is like Civ 6. Like they actually had disputes with the intro music, like the theme for the game. Like you boot up the game on stream, your VOD's muted.
I learned that with Hotline Miami. I thought the Hotline Miami soundtrack was a banger, but I started listening to that, and my editor was like, "Hey, you got to stop listening to Hotline Miami because some of the highlight reels he was doing from the Twitch VODs were all getting struck basically because of the Hotline Miami OST." And I didn't realize, well, that's actually Hotline Miami bought the rights for some other song from some band to put into their game, which doesn't mean I have the rights to play it in my videos. So still kind of learning that side of it.
Yeah,
Typically
my
with
reaction with that was
music-
sorry,
Sorry,
go
go
ahead. I was just gonna say that my experience with that was Cyberpunk, and then they had like this streamer mode thing that would make sure you didn't play that. That's what happened for me. Sorry, what were you saying?
A lot of games have like composed music. Like they pay to compose the music. And in some cases, like with Blizzard, again, this is like 12 years ago, but they had something that was like an open letter. It's like you can use our stuff to make content. And I think they did that because Nintendo went the other way at that time. Yeah, basically they wanted people to make content for Blizzard games. So you're generally in the clear with that because it would be such like PR suicide for them to claw that back, basically. So a lot of that old composed music from the video game developers themselves, you're pretty good to use it. Yeah, that's true.
On that topic, try to go back to like talking about games more so than just music itself. But on that topic, knowing from what we've seen, a lot of people are very upset with Diablo 4 specifically, like with how it came out. It's very expensive, and you're paying for a very poor product, not fixing fundamental things like in the current state of the game. The corpses for Necro is a prime example of the current state of the patches, right? So with that in mind, do you think that if they were presented with the choice of doing this open letter or making the decision on what to do with their content now to allow content creators to make content out of their game, or if they would take the Nintendo route, do you think they would choose differently in the current state that we're in right now with Blizzard?
So if Blizzard went back and started like copyright striking videos that painted Diablo 4 in a negative light, you think that would go over well? I think that would have the opposite effect. That's like the Barbra Streisand effect on that one.
It'd be the worst thing that they could do from a PR standpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah. It wouldn't help, I don't think.
I guess then we have the other problem is that Microsoft owns them now. So yeah, not Blizzard, Microsoft nowadays. Sorry, but yes. No, I don't know. It just feels so awkward with like specifically when it comes to like D4, because it feels like they care more about the value of their stock to the next quarter for their shareholders rather than the next 7 quarters. Does that make any sense?
Well, it's not they care, the shareholders care. short-term profits is kind of like baked in the stock market. Publicly traded companies are just gonna work that way. Like if Blizzard made it like super clear, that's like, okay guys, short term our company's gonna tank, but a year from now we're gonna be better off. They're getting sued. Their shareholders are definitely suing them. But like, if you owned the company and you didn't need the money right away, you'd be like, sounds good to me, boss, right? But that's just not how it works.
Sad but true. I mean, I guess that's the inevitable result of a company growing to the size that they're at, right? Would that be fair to say? Because it seems like that's like the trajectory that's happening across the board, and it's hard to stay clear from. And it's just, I don't know, communication on bigger companies when it comes to fixing things, it just slows down as it becomes more and more corporate. And
I think it comes from, maybe I have a bad take. I'd be open to that. But for me, it seems like it comes from a lack of identity. The larger you get and the more people you have, fundamentally, there's going to be a smaller percentage of the original people that had the core identity and concepts of the games they're creating within the company. So if you have like a small team that is creating a game with a vision that's fairly small and the communication between them is direct, that will slowly get diluted as more people are acquired by the company. Now, you could say that, well, more people means you can do more work, but I also feel eventually there's a point where you hit red tape. You know, I don't really know at what point you hit the balance of small enough team, clear vocal point, clear idea of content, and clear execution versus we need more people to be able to execute these plans faster. At what point does it actually go the other way and start slowing things down? I don't know. But that's what it kind of seems like to me in terms of at least the issues we're running into. At least maybe part of it.
I kind of feel that Diablo 4 is like a constant like crisis map. It's always like, okay, so we got
I agree with that
50
statement.
things that are really wrong, and by next week we can only fix 5. And 2 weeks after that, we got to hit up the game with some new content. And I think there's just like a lot of cracks for stuff to slip through in between.
Yeah. I don't know. I felt like when Diablo 4 on the launch, you guys remember how Reddit was on fire? Like with the feedback, they were like, you know what, minions are overpowered, and they were like, yo, we're gonna nerf minions. Everyone's like, oh, they were overpowered. It's a good nerf. And to me, I was like, wait, hold up a minute now. Hold up. This seems a bit excessive, boys. Hello? I mean, have you played the game? Please don't do this. And then they shoved it in, and it was just disaster. And Reddit was on fire, people screaming for buffs, and the company buffed them back a little bit. Suddenly, they were being praised because they were listening to the community. But the way I saw it was like they just randomly shoved a number out of, whatever pocket they could find. And then, this is surely fine. It wasn't. And then they just fixed it when the playtesters, the actual players, got to play it and said, this is terrible. And then they get praised for being heard by the community feeling heard. And I was like, the problem wasn't the minions getting nerfed or the entire event that transpired specifically to that topic. The problem was that they showed the world that this is how they're going to continue balancing the game. They're not going to play test it properly or have it, fine-tuned to the point where a change is have the purpose of trying to be as accurately achieving whatever goal they have with such changes, buffs or nerfs. It's just a random number. We're going to make some changes. Random changes occurring. Let's see what comes out of this mess, And that's basically how I felt every patch has basically been handled ever since, which was just a clear display of this, going from a beta of level 20 and 25 and then 20, moving forward into where we are today. Do you guys agree with that statement, or like you guys have a different take?
I do agree with that, but I feel like in the specific case that you're talking about, they still had the benefit of the doubt.
Yes, they did. Yes.
Yeah. Goodwill.
And now we see it in the light that you're describing. But at the time, it was like maybe that's what they needed, right? Like hell, in Diablo 2, when you increase the difficulty, your minions just get stronger because they're like mobs. Right? Like we had just no idea how it worked.
I got kind of I got a question for you, Kripp. You've been a content creator way longer than I have, and I'm kind of asked for some advice here. When it comes to these types of games, let's see, we're talking about Diablo 4 in terms of the controversy and the ups and downs. What would your suggestion be to somebody like newer into the kind of the same genre when it comes to how much you actually get involved in this and planning around? Because my issue, I'll tell you where I'm running into and why I'm asking for your opinion on this one, is I'm running into a spot where it's like Diablo 4 obviously has issues. And I don't know how much I necessarily want to be like preaching upon the issues every day in my content. I could go out and I could make builds every day, but that's not really what I enjoy necessarily doing. So it's how much do you yourself involve yourself in the day-to-day processes of a game when it has fundamental issues like this? Would you suggest you move on to other games? How do you handle issues like what we're seeing with Diablo 4 when, I mean, Diablo is one of your major games you grew up with, right?
I mean, I don't think there's like a catch-all answer here, though.
Sure.
Like, I get where you're coming from, but I mean, maybe I can answer this with a little bit of a story in a way.
Yeah, I'd love it.
Like when I was playing Diablo 3 when it came out, surprisingly, a lot of things are pretty similar in regards to the balancing, the overall scope, and what you were supposed to do once you maxed out a character. Nothing being the answer. So, what did I do with Diablo 3? Well, I played it as long as it was fun. I found ways to play it that I found fun. Like, we beat the game pretty early on softcore, and we did that to see if it's even playable on hardcore. So then we tried to play it on hardcore, and that was a real challenge, and we took it on, and it was actually pretty fun because it was a real challenge. And then their first main patch, they just made monsters have half the health and half the damage. But because a lot of characters had block, and the block in Diablo 3 is based on the amount of the shield. So it'd be like 75% of the time you'd block 30,000 damage from the hit. But then when the monsters do 30,000 instead of 60,000, they go from dealing lots of damage to not dealing damage. So that was kind of the change that resulted from that patch. And shortly after, they did like the Paragon levels. So we gave that a try. And like a few days after Paragon levels, I just like, when I was playing the game, my brain was like shutting off. It's like, yeah, I'm not doing this. So then I just quit, right? But then, if that's what gives you viewership and you value viewership over what you're doing, those are like really personal, nuanced questions that you're going to be asking yourself. I think when it comes to like Diablo, the IP is still strong despite a lot of the shortcomings of Diablo 4. There's going to be people that are going to tune into YouTube to learn about what's happening in Diablo. So at the end of the day do you want to be one of those people, and is your enjoyment of the game worthwhile enough to take that journey, right? And that's not going to have the same answers for everyone.
Well, I appreciate you attempting to answer that because, I like I said, I watched you before I even ever made content, so I knew I wanted to ask for at least a little bit of advice since I had you on the ringer here for a moment. So I appreciate the insight there.
Thank you.
For me, I swapped over the Path of Exile. That was my answer because I kind of hit the same boat where I got bored, and I was like, everyone keeps telling me to play PoE, let me try it. And at first, I was getting enjoyability out of kind of being blind going into it and like purposely trying not to learn the guides because I knew I couldn't get an authentic experience because I'm live and there's 1,000 people in the chat telling you stuff. I knew I couldn't have 100% authentic, but I wanted to try to get as close to it as I could. And I'm really glad I did that because it gave me at least a little look into what it might be to start the game originally. And then as I continued to play, I started to see the depth that was behind it. And then I really started to have fun just this last month because I started doing hardcore solo self-found. And for me, it was like the game was totally different at that point. Like the things that I had to learn in order to progress. Not that I made myself learn to know what I was talking about, but I had to learn if I even wanted to keep my character, like spell suppression being an example, right? That type of stuff made the game infinitely more enjoyable for me personally. It might actually be worse for my content, I feel like, but I almost didn't care because it was way more enjoyable just to play as a game. And I find myself leaning towards that more than anything. So to go back to your point about Last Epoch is going to be the first game that you haven't in a while looked into before playing, I'm kind of curious if you're excited by that same premise of you're going into it almost purposefully not knowing something in order to get an authentic experience.
I mean, there's always an unknown element to playing games, even ones you think you know pretty well. So it's
True.
not like totally new territory. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm eager to try it. I actually bought Last Epoch like a year and a half ago, and I never played it. So that's just like I'm gonna play this game at some point, and then that point, I guess it'll come later this month.
No, no, for sure. I like. It's funny to listen to this. 'Cause, like, I started streaming because of my guides. Soon to be 10 years ago. I'm on your heels here, Kripp. I'm coming.
Yeah.
Sadly, I'm not gonna be able to catch up, but you know how it is. But soon to be 10 years. I make guides, which demands knowledge. Like I can't make guides unless I know what I'm talking about. So I always went in with that, and I remember you and me, DM. We played very fun duo, and then we had a trio with Pox actually playing. Where we went back to this whole roots of just doing something that's way out of my comfort zone, and like the way you change the way the game plays just feels so fantastic. Which also reads back to what you were talking about, Kripp, where suddenly playing Ruthless elevated the enjoyment you're getting out of the game, because suddenly the purpose of what you're getting, the excitement of the drops that you're getting is worth so much more, and that gives you that enjoyment factor, right? So that's pretty fun to do in those cases. And like for me personally, when it comes to like playing the games for enjoyment, it's always been like ARPGs. I focus on my guides, and then if I'm only looking to do something for fun, I just step out of my comfort zone, do something I have no guide for, whatever I do, and that's like basically how I get my entertainment out of it. But I enjoy doing guides. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's just enjoyable, I mean, we talk quite a lot, especially when it comes to like Diablo and PoE with Minion stuffs multiple times over. We have very different approaches on going into games. It's very fun to have someone to talk to with these things, getting different perspectives. Just like, especially something as complex as PoE, it's like, well, we could do this and then you could do that, and cook up the batch, and you have a really nice cookie at the end of the session. It was fun.
Well, I will say to you, DM, so I'm not like king of variety or something. I probably have played fewer games than most people that stream on Twitch, honestly, in terms of the number of them, because I like to play games for like a long period of time, but they have to be ones that can be played for a long period of time. They have to kind of hold my interest. And I think overall, PoE is like the best game I've ever played. I think it is like the only game that I would say is 10 out of 10. Obviously, they update the game pretty heavily, so some updates are not the best, but wholly speaking, I think it is the best game I've ever played. With that said, I don't think I'd want to play PoE like full time. Like when a new league comes out, I play a lot of PoE, so you might not get to this point anytime soon or ever. But yeah, 4, 6, 7 weeks into a league, just something else grabs my interest more. Right? So just games have like different kind of things that they hit. Whereas for Battlegrounds, like even Arena, when I was playing Arena, like some of the good Arena patches, like I feel I could play forever. I feel I could play Wrath of the Lich King, World of Warcraft forever. But then Cataclysm came out, and I don't want to play at all. Right? So things can change.
No, for sure.
I think
I started playing. Sorry?
No, go on, guys. Yeah, I'll go after.
I started doing a little off-stream project with my community where I booted up a game called Tibia. It is an MMO RPG game with no ending that came out in 1997, about 6 months or something before RuneScape, the OG RuneScape, came out. It was very big in Europe and Southern America, and RuneScape was bigger in the Northern America regions. And I was just that nostalgic. Like every time I have a couple hours spare, I'll play with my community off stream now. It's something as bad of a game like that, because it's like it's made in paint. It's so much fun. but I stopped for a reason, 15 years ago. So yeah, like you said, I mean, things changed, right? We do grow older, sadly. It does happen. What are you saying, DM?
Oh, I was just gonna kind of continue the conversation about following enjoyability and say that, like, for me, I think my ideal scenario for that is pretty much go with each season, because it doesn't matter. I still actually enjoy like D4 on season launch. I think I'm going to enjoy all of the season launches. It's the same thing with PoE. I'm going to enjoy all the season launches, and I'm really hoping that last Epoch on launch is going to be the same thing, where I have a third season to go through. So then I can just hit the PoE launch, hit the last Epoch launch, hit the D4 launch. It will be fun. It's good for viewership because all the people are there at the same time as well. And then in between, you can slot in the variety games you want. Speaking to your point of Tibia, there's a game called Raven Dawn that is very similar to Tibia. That has been coming out somewhere recently, and I started playing that one a little bit. It was pretty fun. I see Pox have been playing a lot of that one too. Really Ode style MMO, but hella grindy. I guess no one's max level, and I guess people don't even know what the max level is. I don't know if that's correct, but it seems like
Soft cap is 75.
For the soft cap, and then you can push beyond.
That's like BDO had that as well, where a soft cap, and then you basically get no experience at all, but you can if you dig your head down in the sand and just keep pushing, and I guess you can level up. I tried Raven Dawn, and it's very, very not like Tibia. I thought it was super much like exactly like Tibia, but it's not even close. It's just the grid movement and the graphics are very similar.
True enough.
I feel like Raven Dawn is more like a traditional approach to an MMO game with a very grindy approach, and a lot of the economy is like player driven. It's really cool. Don't get me wrong. I actually found myself enjoying it quite a lot playing it. Tibia is just, there is no ending. I remember when the first person in the world hit 100 or level 200, level 300, and this was many, many years ago. And the rank 2 and rank 3 players of highest levels in the world, they are now a married couple, and they're level 2,500 or something. It's pretty
cool.
Yeah.
Is there a reason to be that high level though? I don't know.
They're
Do you
releasing
just,
new
step
content.
in a room and all the skeletons present their loot to you?
No. Like, they're consistently adding, because people are getting to these levels. They're adding content that is actually challenging for those type of players. So it is consistently getting up there. There's been so many changes happening. But it was like recent year, there was one player that went above this married couple in the highest levels in the world, which I believe is a Brazilian player, if I recall. I don't know. I just think it's so cool because, like, I started playing. I think I have a level 270 character or something out. But it's just never been that high. It's so cool. It's like, but Raven Dawn is very different in that sense. I think Raven Dawn is more like newer player experience friendly, I guess, to some degree, more streamlined. Like, you have a skill tree. You have like heals. You can have like parties and whatnot.
In depth, but very indie, and the graphics I think would turn off a lot of the people. You know what I'm curious about too is, were either of you guys excited by Blizzard's survival game that got canceled? I don't know if either of you were much of survival players. You were not really too much in survival.
Look,
I love it.
They said go ahead on Diablo 4 launch, and they said this game's not good enough, so I believe them.
Okay, yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it. Yeah.
When you put it that way.
Yeah.
I love survival games. That's why I try to shout it. I play Palworld, Conan Exiles. Remember that many years ago. I love survival games. I really do. I never heard about Blizzard survival games. I'm kind of with Kripp on this one. Oh man.
All right, fair enough. I guess I was just kind of bummed out because I like survival games enough. But when you say it that way, it's like, hey, they were good with D4, but yeah. All right, well, maybe it's a good thing they did cancel it. Huh?
That's fair. Speaking of games getting canceled or new games or old games, Microsoft taking over right now. I think we're kind of closing in on about 2 hours on the show as well. So I was thinking maybe we could check what you guys think thoughts are surrounding Microsoft taking over from Blizzard and the current state of Diablo and whatnot. Are you guys expecting to see any major changes when it comes to Diablo specifically, since we're sticking to ARPGs here? We start with UDM.
Okay, well, I think the fact that first it was Blizzard, then it was Activision Blizzard, now it's Microsoft-owned Activision Blizzard, and we have an Activision president, makes me think that the games that made us fans of Blizzard are slowly getting farther and farther away from. That's what standard logic would deduce. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I know enough about running a company or enough about the insides of there to tell you if there's anything that's good is going to come out of it. All I know is the products that are coming out lately don't seem to make the people happy, and I don't see how going into bigger and bigger companies, based upon what I said earlier about I feel like there's so many people that communication's probably a primary factor. I don't necessarily see that changing. I understand the layoffs just happened, and maybe they cut some of the fat. Maybe, I guess you could make that argument. You could also make the argument it's a really bad thing. So I don't have enough of an internal insight to be able to say if it's going to be a good or bad thing. I would lean towards not good, just because more companies merging and becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger seems to me to go farther away from the original company with the original people that made the original games that made the company great. But that's just how I see it.
What about you, Kripp?
I feel that the Diablo team bit off more than they could chew when it comes to like seasonality, especially with the way they set it up. So they have like one team working on one season and the other team working on the other season. That basically tells you that every season they're gonna throw that season's content in the trash. So, like, I'm hoping that they kind of grab the reins on this one and get like a hold of it. But yeah, I think out of the gate, their plan was maybe a bit overly ambitious. I don't think it's like unsalvageable or something, but they definitely have like a long way to go with Diablo, in my opinion, anyway.
That's fair. I feel like I've realized that as a Diablo franchise enjoyer for many, many years, I feel like the realization that the franchise is no longer catering to my type of player base was very disheartening. I think that's where I landed when it comes to Diablo specifically. It's just catering to a very different type of player base that I just don't belong to anymore. But I kind of agree with like the approach you guys had as well. The biggest problem with that entire situation that I have is that there were millions upon millions upon millions of dollars invested into marketing, which is something Blizzard and Activision have both been fantastic at, which is also very big reason why the games that they've released are as popular as they are, because the vast majority are playing them. MMO games, for example, specifically in general, online games just needs player bases to be good, even if they are worse than a competitor, because they have the player base, they are then considered the better choice. And I think that the money spent on marketing could have been, cut off a little bit, and a few more people could have been hired, and the product could have been significantly better, and suddenly the game could have potentially had a brighter future of catering to not just the casual 9-to-5 dads and moms, but also to the actual more gamers, if you will, non-casual.
Is the Gauntlet going to do anything for you guys? Either of you feel like you care about the Gauntlet that's coming up here in Season 3?
No, I don't give a shit about the Gauntlet that's coming up in Season 3.
There it is.
And I'm still playing Diablo. Like, it's not like I'm disenfranchised with the game even.
How about the Uber crafting that just got added? Do you care about that at all?
I think that's pretty cool. I don't think it serves me well, but there's probably like people out there that are farming Duriel and they've got most of the Uber uniques and they just want one of them, and they're probably following a road of insanity. So I'm happy that those guys don't have to do
like
that
your pack
forever.
of cards, trying to get those 7 that you don't have.
Right.
So I don't know. I feel like what makes an ARPG really good is understanding that the entire genre is the very definition of insanity. You're doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. What makes the ARPG game good is if the game is well designed to the point where it is distracting you from realizing that you are doing the same thing over and over and over again. Path of Exile is able to achieve this through many years of very, very high quality content for the most part, you can choose and pick and choose a lot of different things, allowing you to be distracted from this fact. Diablo just currently does not do that. It just feels like insanity. And it is. But it's not, the game's not distracting me from it. And that's my biggest issue when it comes to the gameplay loop. Like, it's just coming back to, I'm bored of doing this.
I feel like I disagree a little bit. Like, I don't feel like I'm following the treadmill of like beating all the bosses or whatever. Like, I think for me, for PoE and Diablo, it's let's make like a plan. Let's make like a way to play the game that hasn't been done before, and let's see how good it is. Like, that's kind of how I go into this. And I don't care if like this build is like half as good as the best insanely bugged meta build. I just don't care. It doesn't have anything to do with my enjoyment in the game. And like I feel like a lot of it is more nuanced. It's just like Diablo's not really set up to hit that nuance. Like one major issue I feel like with their seasonal content is they just haven't really set up the game to where you can apply nuance. Like, you're talking about a game where like a chest piece can like 5x the EHP of your character, and then the legs as well, and then like a shield as well, and then like a helmet half as much, right? Like, and then you have barbarians doing their one-shot combos for like a billion, right? Like, it's not capable of nuance, and because it's not capable of nuance, until they fix some of this stuff and they put it like within more of like a balanced threshold, every single seasonal boss is a loot pinata. It just has to be. I don't think it's so much that they're like adhering to casuals. I think it's that they haven't really set up a game where they can apply nuance in it. Right? Like when they're like, oh, this is gonna be the new epic boss that's gonna have traps, and then like, oh my god, can you defeat him? Yes. I know I can defeat him. I can take the shittiest build, take off half my gear, and find a way to kill that boss, and next season's boss, and the season after that. Right? Like, until these really core things are addressed, that's just always going to be the case.
Does this include pet druid builds or companion druid builds?
Yes.
Even for single
target. Companion druid single target is out of control. Like, you think I'm joking, but no.
No, I know you're not joking. I'll take your word for it.
The issue with the companion druid,
might not, though.
Yeah. So here's the issue with companion druid. You know how necromancer, like the skeletons have like some HP, and if you really stack survivability, they get like a third of that, and you get the minion armor and the minion resists, and like, hey, they're actually not taking 1/3 of their life per hit. They're taking like 10% now, and you can play the build.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but those stupid wolves have like 5 health. And like, the more points you have in the skill, they still have 5 health. And if you give them...
They gave them that for a Necronode for free.
Right. So basically, against any content, the minion wolves, which are the highest damage minion, by the way, they will get killed in 3 hits. Like, you can go do open world content, they're still getting killed in 3 hits. You can do Nightmare Dungeon 100, they're still getting killed in 3 hits. And the added problem is that there's no way to break their CC. Like, if you press the wolf button and all your wolves are frozen, well, they're just going to stay frozen. Nothing happens. So, yeah.
So back to the nuance point you're making. Do you think that the team, when it comes to itemization remake, it's basically the same team that made the game on launch, right? So it's like, do you think the team can execute an itemization change to be able to enable that level of nuance?
It's possible. I think some of the mechanics they have are actually pretty good. Like they have an attack speed cap of 100. That's good. Because, like, impossible to hit. But then that means they can throw in seasonal attack speed mechanics and not worry about it. Right? So, I don't know. Caps actually seem to work pretty okay in this game. It's hard to say. Like I think their crit damage vulnerable thing was also a good change, but they don't have enough mechanics to convert stats to be meaningful. Like druids have this thing where you can make close damage and distant damage become a multiplier. Barbarians have that with something. Sorks have that with crit damage and fire builds, which is even more interesting because fire dots don't even crit. So suddenly they open up hybrid playstyles. So yeah, I don't know how much they're going to put into the itemization changes, but I think I'm at least for now hopeful for it. Maybe.
Fair.
Now, I really have to pee, so I think I'm gonna go do that, and I will see you guys in a couple minutes.
You're all good, my dude.
Oh man, I don't know if I feel like too much hope is there. Like I definitely think that they want to make a good like game. I don't think any dev goes to work and be like, I want to make a bad game. There are other issues at play. You know, communication can be one thing. And I just feel more and more like the sanctuary world I grew up with is just evolved to a point where it's not for me anymore. And I still have fun playing the game. Like you said, I'm happy to go from PoE League launch, last Epoch League launch. I get like a month and a half of PoE. I get a month and a half out of last Epoch. I get 10 hours out of D4 and then back to PoE. Like that's the cycle I'm looking at. I just want those 10 hours to be more than 10 hours. You know, that's all I want. Is that too much to ask for?
Well, I think it comes down to itemization season 4. So it's like I don't really know what there is that they can do without changing itemization first, because I think Kripp's actually right about the nuance point where it's you're either one hitting things and there's not really a way to make a balanced mechanic. I think a lot of that comes down to the way you piece together the builds. You know what I'm curious about though is I'm kind of curious about, there's some people wanting to talk about PoE 2. I'm actually interested in PoE 2 because we haven't talked about that at all.
Yeah.
So going into PoE 2, I'll just open the conversation with this. What's your guys' class you're most excited for?
Which?
The Witch?
I mean, I came off pretty cringeworthy. I didn't want to make too much statements about it with my statements on the MTX before, but the Witch I love playing. The Witch archetype, caster builds and minions are like the thing I love in ARPGs in general. And the Witch reveal is going to include a lot of minion stuff from what we talked with Jonathan about, right? So I'm very excited for that specifically. That's just the boat I'm in. I'm just anything Witch, and I'm happy basically.
Minion guy wants a minion class.
I'm a minion guy that also wants a minion class.
I don't know, I'm outnumbered.
But so in PoE 2 they have like a spirit system, which is kind of like mana reservation, but it's just spirit. And there's ways to invest and increase your spirit. And like the minions, there's no like I don't know how to say it. So in PoE 1, you get the zombie gem, you get like 3 zombies. You level it up, 6 zombies. You get like plus 8 skills, 7 zombies. You get the 2 skill points, 9 zombies. You're like crazy strength stacker, 12 zombies. Good for you, right? But with spirit, each minion you summon costs spirit reservation. So it like massively opens up how you can play minion builds. Like you focus on one skill and summon 10 of that minion, or you get like 2 or 3 skills and try to get synergies between the minions. And that has the added layer of synergy that we don't really have that whole thing where we worry about socket pressure. There's no gem pressure in PoE 2. Like every gem has a 6 link attached to it. So It's completely different ballgame. So minions are gonna be like a new kind of puzzle to solve, and it looks way more complicated to solve than it does in PoE 1. So I'm
Yep.
pretty excited about it also.
Do you
But
think?
honestly, I'm more excited about trying to make minion builds work on ascendancies that aren't kind of tailored to it.
Hmm.
Like, I actually kind of like Guardian more than Witch, even though it's less tailored to minions. And I've been eyeing like Scion minion builds a little bit, which I think are pretty cool. It's
You
Ruthless,
know?
okay? We're not talking about the same thing here.
Yeah, no, I'm aware. It's okay. Still curious to see what you come up with, though. So still have the
Yeah.
PUB you sent me for the Guardian Absolution you played last, I believe. Still looking really solid with the damage conversions, actually.
It's pretty good.
No,
Does
no complaints.
Do you think that the fact that swapping weapons is going to swap your entire class tree is going to fundamentally change a ton about minions? Since I'm assuming you can have like a summon version of the skill tree. We swap weapons, you summon based upon that skill tree, swap back to like your own casting type of abilities, and then you have different skill trees for the summon itself. Or how do you think that's going to influence it?
So I imagine GHAZZY did as well. So we played with kind of the weapon swap mechanic a little bit at
Mm.
ExileCon this year.
Okay.
And when you weapon swap, there's like a tiny delay, but it's like half a second or a second type of thing.
Okay.
So generally, if they keep that, I mean, it's still in development. If they keep that, I don't think you'll be weapon swapping as much as you think. But
Okay.
minions might be the exception because a lot of it is passive damage. So yeah.
Very, very likely. Yeah, I think to my understanding was cycled. There's a damage mitigation or damage immunities and stuff like that is what we talked about. I believe that was in the last show we had, or they had with Jonathan. I think that weapon swapping has more to do with the purpose of allowing you to have multiple types of um, ailment or elemental damage approaches, or sort of different types of that, so that when you encounter an enemy that is very strong against fire and you're playing a fire oriented build, you still have the option of having like a side ability that you can swap over to deal with that kind of encounter. Minions Minions have very rarely in the history of PoE been the best at anything. They've just very consistently always had options that are really good at everything. And that's what's really nice with minion builds when you have a fully prepped and designed, cake cooked and ready, baked and ready to go with. And that's where minions are so good, because the process of getting to that stage is so much fun. That's where I enjoy so much with PoE, for example. And they have less of an issue with those things, unless, of course, we're talking about the fact that you're doing full conversion to something. Like in the current state of PoE, you have Triad Grip, full cold conversion. You pop Expedition. Oh shit! I forgot to lock them into cold. I'll just take off my glove and let them do fist damage. But I mean, the design of that. So the weapon swap approach. To get back to the point there, the weapon swap for that, it's like you said, Kripp, the idea of that will definitely be very different. But it was also a very small fraction of the skill tree that was tied to the weapon swap. It wasn't like the entire skill tree, right? It was just a handful of points, like 10 or 11 or something like that, right?
Yeah, but I feel like you can do interesting stuff with it. Like, as if PoE 2 combat's a lot more slow paced. They expect you to like not get hit by the boss. I think they've said this. I think if you're really good, no boss is going to hit you. Something along those lines. But the way that I see that is like I can just weapon swap like 20 health nodes. And then if I'm playing a summoner where I'm just going to get hit, it's time to swap some weapons, right? I don't know. Like I feel it's pretty dynamic when you involve more of these like passive damage builds. And I mean, I like playing minions. Some people don't like playing minions, but I really like making minion builds more than anything. Kind of adding on to GHAZZY's discussion here. There's just a lot more to consider. Like, if you just make a point-click damage build, are you fast enough? Do you do enough damage? Can you take enough damage? But with minions, it's all of that, but like the minion damage, but then you have to factor in the minion survivability, you have to factor in the minion AI, you have to factor in the uptime on a whole lot of other things that generally buff minions. You have uptime related things, and you're soon going to realize that you can't do everything you want because minions always battle socket pressure and button pressure.
That's really important that you bring that up. A lot of people say minion builds are the laziest build you can play, and I'm just so baffled. Every time I play a minion build, I'm like, this is the most active play style in the entire game, and people are saying it's lazy. You want to play lazy? Go play Righteous Fire. That's lazy. All right.
It does depend a little bit though. There are some lazy minion builds. You can go in that direction if you wish.
So
Yeah.
you mentioned you were at ExileCon. I've never gone to an ExileCon. It's one of those things where it's like you should probably go one time and check it out. Is it what compared to BlizzCon on the level? Is it more exciting? Think I should go one of these years?
Well, at BlizzCon you'd be lucky if you meet like a few people you'd like to, and at ExileCon you can just meet all the developers if you're patient enough. So that's kind of the difference. And like New Zealand as a country is like another planet.
Yeah.
Well, I guess LA is too, but we're talking about different extremes here. Like, you know, LA is different in like traffic. New Zealand is different that everything is like a volcano. Right? Like, we're talking about different.
Like it depends on where in the country you are as well. I mean, people went skiing, and then they went swimming. Yeah. 6 hours later, like, okay, it's not a big country either.
Speaking of different, cool. You ever been to Alaska, Kripp?
Nope.
Would you ever consider trying out Alaska, seeing what it's like?
Yeah, I just, definitely. But man, I've learned too much about polar bears. It's always like a little uneasy.
Yeah, they're like predators.
Like, that's not your average bear.
Luckily, you don't see them too much unless you're really north, like on the oil line level of north.
Well, ideally, you'd see them never. Because then if you see them once, you got problems.
Pretty much. It is interesting that they're like one of the only bears that like actively hunt, humans. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean.
Okay, so you've gone down the rabbit hole of polar bears.
I mean, I live in Sweden. Like, the most dangerous shit we got down here is like a wild boar and a moose. That's about it. And you have to go to very specific places to find these. That's it. Like, we don't even have venomous animals, so it's like,
yeah.
Maybe a wasp.
The moose are pretty cool, but I'm more scared of a moose than I am of a polar bear, just because the moose are everywhere. Like, I saw one in my house's front yard. I've only been there a week. I walked out the door, and there's just a big old moose. It's like, all right, here we go again. You see those on, like, a weekly basis, pretty much.
They're massive. Like, you don't get perspective on how big these animals are until you actually see one in real life. They're humongous. Monstrous sized.
Someone says in Ireland the most dangerous animals is a badger. Well, in New Zealand the most dangerous animal is a tourist. So...
I thought you were gonna say drop bear.
A tourist?
That's kind of true though. That's kind of true. But like, New Zealand is basically the safe version of Australia. Nothing really wants to kill you. Australia, everything wants to kill you.
Wait, where are you from, Kripp? You're not in New Zealand, are you?
No. I live in Canada. I live in Toronto. It's like the big city.
Okay. You're not terribly far.
Downtown.
I've been to Toronto.
Yeah.
I've driven the Alcan like 4 times because the cheapest way to get a car is buy them in Washington and drive the Alcan to Alaska because the prices in Alaska are like kind of ridiculous. So you get used to doing the Alcan.
What is an Alcan? Is that like a train?
Oh, no, it's the Alaska Canadian Highway. So it's the road that connects Alaska to Washington, to the lower 48 there. That's the Alcan. And whenever I do the Alcan, I like to stop in Edmonton and check out the mall there. I always thought the mall was pretty cool, although it gets boring after, And it's like a mall, but bigger, I guess. But the water parks and stuff are kind of cool on the inside.
How long does this drive take you?
Oh, multiple days for sure. I mean, I guess you could bomb it. But I mean, it's thousands of miles. Like, it's not a.
I mean, like, I live in Sweden. I live in southern Sweden, not all the way down, but on the west coast. It takes me about 6 hours on the car to get to just about midway. it'll take me less than a day to drive from one end of the country to the top of the other end. Less than a day.
Yeah, that's
It's
insane
far.
for me. It takes 6 hours in Alaska to go from the one major city to the other, which is Anchorage to Fairbanks, is 6 hours. And those are like the two major cities, basically. And then, there's even farther than that if you really wanted to.
That's not too
Kind of
bad.
crazy. I have that perk in Europe. I get on a plane, a 3-hour ride with a plane, and I can visit probably in the ballpark of 15 countries on a 3-hour plane ride. 10 to 15 countries is what that flight would take me to.
That's not bad. I mean, if you can go to that many different countries, for me, it's like the only country that's close is Canada. I guess Japan's not that far away because you just cross the sea there. But if I'm going to like California, is 7 or 8 hours basically from Alaska.
No, that's fair. Speaking of traveling and moving things like our bodies, my fiance is dying to get down in the jacuzzi with our new house, so I think we're gonna have to wrap things up. We are hitting a bit of around 2 hours as well. Anything you guys want to bring up for final comments before we wrap this up?
No, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining, Kripp. Appreciate it as always, man.
Yeah, thanks for out of all the podcasts we've done, man, I was kind of the most excited to talk to you. I'm not gonna lie, because I watched you for years before I even made videos at all. So thanks for having the conversation, dude.
Did I? You got to rate me now. Did I live up to the hype, or was it like a Diablo 3 or 4 situation here?
Ooh, that's a good question. To be honest, I'm glad that it's just like a dude who's having a normal conversation. Like there's no aura at all of like facade or persona. It's just Kripp. It's just kind of I was a little nervous. I'm not gonna lie to you, dude. I was kind of nervous. I'm like, okay, well, this is the one I don't want to like fuck up or whatever, because I've been watching this boy a while. But no, it was what I was hoping it was. And thanks for answering the question about that I had around career advice, I suppose. So that means a lot. So yes.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
That's very fun. For those of you watching this on YouTube, you can find Darth Microtransactions and Mr. NL_Kripp. Links to their Twitch channels is down in the descriptions below, as well as mine, GHAZZY TV. Make sure you hit the like button, subscribe for more content. And we're doing these pseudo bi-weekly now. Last Epoch show coming up very soon on the 19th of February, sorry. And thanks again, Kripp, for joining us. Hope you guys had fun with this tavern talk. And I'll catch you guys in the next one.
Cheers.